Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, April 21st. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 526 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. It is Monday. It is the last Monday before the NFL draft. We are just 3 days away from night number 1. Cannot wait. And today is our final New York Jets 7-round mock draft. Kind of a mix between what I would do and also some predictions in terms of what I think the Jets will do as we go throughout this 7-round mock draft today. So cannot wait. And I want to dive right into this one. So we've talked a lot about the different scenarios for the New York Jets at number 7, right? Armand Membu, Tyler Warren. Who do they decide to go with? Those seem to be the top 2 guys. I think you could also make the case, of course, if Mason Graham falls to 7, the Jets have met with him 3 different times. They have done a lot of homework on him. It feels like if Graham would to fall to 7, that could be the pick there for the New York Jets. I prefer offense, and that's what I'm going to take here at number 7. Now, in my opinion, I think the New York Jets will go with Armand Membu. If I had to make a prediction, that's the direction I think the Jets go in. Muji and Glenn, I think, approach it as round out this offensive line, get all 5 starters locked in, get your 2 bookend tackles, ideally for the next 10 to 15 years, call it a day, and build through your weapons through the middle rounds of this draft where it is a deeper tight end class. Now, what I would do, and wouldn't be mad at either, and I've said that many times, I'm okay with Membu, I'd be okay with Warren. I do slightly prefer Tyler Warren, though, so that's what we're going to do here. Round 1, pick 7, Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State, 6'5.5", 256 pounds, senior. You look at his 2024 numbers. We've talked about Warren a ton, so don't want to spend a ton of time, but very impressive stuff. 104 receptions, 1,233 yards, 11.9 yards per reception, 8 touchdowns. He led the Big Ten in all 3 of those categories, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And he was tied for 2nd in the nation in receptions, 2nd among tight ends in yards, and tied for 3rd among tight ends in the country with those 8 touchdowns. This is a guy that's a do-it-all tight end. He plays with that physicality, plays with a nastiness to him, plays the game where he is a dual threat, can be a solid pass catcher, and also a guy that can do well as a blocker. Pass catching, receiving is obviously his strength, but he did rank 51st percentile, which was above average last year in positively graded run blocking plays, which is a good thing. I think you're looking at a lot of tight ends in this draft. There's kind of a mix. There is your bigger slots, your receiving tight ends that don't do a whole lot from a blocking perspective. And then you have your Tyler Warrens, where it's your well-rounded receiving threat, blocking threat, and more of your inline tight ends that can do both. And I think that's what you're getting here at number 7 with Warren if the Jets take him. Do it all tight end, strong hands, physical. Could use some refining and some work on his route tree and his overall route running. But we've talked about Warren a ton. You watch the tape, physical, positive, in a lot of areas. 93.4 receiving grade last year, had a 61.9% contested catch rate, just a 2.8% drop rate. Second in missed tackles force, tied for 9th in deep catches, 3rd in contested catches, can stretch the field, can go up and make contested catches and make those physical plays. So you like what Warren brings, going Warren here at pick number 7. Again, fine with both Membu and Warren. Slightly prefer Warren. Get your weapon. This team desperately needs pass rushers, or pass catchers rather, outside of Garrett Wilson. And that's what you get here with Tyler Warren out of Penn State on day number 1. Moving on now to day number 2. I'm going to go Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle here out of Ohio State. Now, the Jets could go in a couple different directions. You could maybe go offensive tackle here. You could maybe go wide receiver, a Jack Besh, a Jaden Higgins. I'm fine with both of those guys. I like Higgins a lot. But to me, you go tight end. I'm going to shore up the trenches now on the defensive side of the football and bring in a guy that I really like and we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and that is Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, defensive tackle. 6'3", 334 pounds, senior. You look at his numbers last year, 46 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. In his 4-year career at Ohio State, he played in 51 games, logged 136 total tackles, 11.5 sacks, and 28 tackles for loss. You're looking at a guy that's just a mauler, a run stuffer in the run game. 88.6 run defense grade and had a run stop rate of 7.8%. Not necessarily a huge threat as a pass rusher, but as a run stuffer, and is somebody that you could put next to Quinnen Williams, clog running lanes, get into the backfield, completely blow up running plays. That's what Tyleik Williams did during his time at Ohio State, especially over the last 2 years, where you saw the production increase significantly. Provides a little bit as a pass rusher, but you're looking at a run stuffer, and I think that balances Quinnen Williams really well. You have Quinnen Williams, who's your do-it-all, your do-it-all, can stop the run, get to the quarterback. He needs some help. They need to stop the run. This Jets defense as a whole has been absolutely pathetic stopping the run. I mean, how many times over the last really 2-3 years, even when this defense was at its peak in 2022 and 2023, did we see them get gashed by the run? Tyleik Williams comes in and shores that up. This is a guy that is a early day 2 talent. I don't know if there's any guarantee that he actually falls to 42. Will be interesting to see kind of how it plays out in front of the Jets in those 30s range. And then obviously the 2 picks prior here to 42. But if he does fall, I think you take him. You look at some of the strengths, can play nose tackle and a 3 tech, which I think is positive. Run defense, talked about it, just a mauler in the run game, has a very explosive first step, and his hand speed to shed off blockers and blow up plays actually improved in 2024. And you can see some of that on tape when you watch him from his previous seasons to last year, technical wise with the hands, got a lot stronger in 2024 as you head into the draft here. Some of the weaknesses, things that he does need to work on. He can pop up quickly and set himself to get off balance and kind of push back and take it out of the play. And the pass rush, like I said, not his strength, could use some more weapons. He needs to improve the pass rush arsenal a little bit. That's not what you're bringing him in to do, though. If you can get more out of him as a pass rusher, that's great. But you're bringing him in as a run stuffer next to Quinnen Williams. I think you fill that need here in day number 2. Love Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. Lots of really good interior defensive linemen in this draft, especially if you want to look post first round. Tyleik Williams being one of those guys. Moving on now to round 3, pick 73. So we addressed tight end. We addressed defensive tackle. I'm now going to shift and address another piece on the trenches, and that is offensive tackle. We're going to take Ozzie Trapilo, right tackle out of Boston College, 6'8", 316, senior, played right tackle in college, 727 snaps in 2023, all 756 snaps last year. Did actually play left in his first season in 2022, or going back to 2022 rather. He played left tackle, but the last 2 years played right tackle. What do the Jets need? They need a right tackle. You don't need to worry about bringing in Ozzie Trapilo and having to cross-train him from left tackle over to right tackle. This is a guy that played right tackle in college, played right tackle well, and you bring him in, and I think he can be a starter this year. To me, Ozzie Trapilo is one of the better tackles in this 3rd round, probably the best tackle you're going to have available. And it kind of feels like if I had to make a prediction, I could also see this happening. Like, we've seen Ozzie Trapilo to the Jets a lot. And I think if the Jets would to go in this direction of going tight end, defensive tackle, and then right tackle, Ozzie Trapilo in that third round, I think is great value. You look at some of the numbers last year, 76.8 overall grade, which was a career high, 80.5 pass blocking grade, which was certainly his strong suit last year. Also had a 78.2 true pass set pass block in grade. I like Trapilo a lot. We've talked about Trapilo a lot on this podcast. Right here, round 3, I think is a good value, good spot for him. You look at some of the strengths. Pass protection last year was certainly a big aspect of his game, but also does some good things against the run. Versatile, football IQ is very high. I think you see that on tape, and very athletic, which I think kind of a common theme. There's a lot of very athletic and athleticism just in general among this offensive line class, specifically some of the tackles. Right, we talk about Membu a lot. He's got a lot of athleticism. Ozzie Trapilo falling under that category as well. Some things he needs to work on. He can get imbalanced. That's because of his height. He's massive, 6'8". Calls him sometimes can pop up against, more of a bull rusher, physical guy. Can get imbalanced sometimes. Got to stay low. Got to stay, firm and compact. And can sometimes play with his head down. But this is a guy you're getting in third round. I think he'd come in and start, in my opinion. And you fill out your right tackle here on day number 2. And these day 2 draft picks, just in general, as we move on here to day number 3, are going to be massive. Like, the Jets have got to find really good talent on day 2, especially on offense. How many times did that previous regime swing and miss on offensive talent in day 2 and day 3? The Jets can't let that happen. Ozzie Trapilo, if they go in this direction, hopefully is a start of a positive direction where the Jets can find mid-round talent. You should be able to find mid-round offensive tackles. You should not have to take a tackle year in and year out in the first round. Good teams can find good tackles on day 2. Ozzie Trapilo, take the card in. That's our day 2 selections. Tyleik Williams, Ozzie Trapilo. You shore up the trenches. So tight end, DT, right tackle. Moving on now to day number 3. I'm going to go Kyle Williams. I love Kyle Williams. And I could also kind of see this being maybe a prediction pick as well. I could see the Jets going after Kyle Williams. They had him in for a top 30 visit. There's certainly some interest there. Kyle Williams is rising up draft boards and kind of unknown where he's going to fall. This was a guy that for the longest time was a 5th, 4th round pick, late, mid day 3 selection. And then recently has skyrocketed up draft boards where he has turned into, in some eyes, a mid day 2 pick to late day 2 pick. So I don't know if there's actually even any guarantee he would default to day 3, but in the world that he does, early day 3 here, round 4, pick 110, we're going to take Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State, and get this team, get Garrett Wilson. How about that? Desperate help next to him, because this wide receiver core and this pass catching corps as a whole is pathetic. So you get another pass catcher here, 5'11", 190 pounds, senior out of Washington State, spent 5 seasons in college football, 3 at UNLV and 2 at Washington State. His 2 years at Washington State, he popped off. 131 receptions, 2,040 yards, 15.5 yards per reception, and 20 touchdowns. And you look at his numbers this past season. I thought this was interesting. The 1,198 yards led the Pac-2, which I know only Pac-2, them and Oregon State, of course, are the only 2 teams in it. Still led the conference, and he was also 8th in college football, so top 10 in college football in yards, and also ranked near the top with his 14 touchdowns this year in the entire nation. So this was a guy in some areas was one of the more underrated, and just throughout this draft process, more underrated prospects from the wide receiver position that is now starting to gain some steam. And I could still certainly see a world where he falls through the cracks, and you're looking at a guy here that could be there for the Jets in day number 3. He ran a 4.4 40-yard dash, You look at some of the PFF numbers, 82.1 receiving grade, a 62.5 contested catch rate. Did have some drops last year, 6.7% drop rate, something you hope he can improve on. Was very good against man coverage. And some things that I really like about Kyle Williams and why I think he fits really well in this Jets offense. They need to stretch the ball, or they need to stretch the field, rather. They need to, throw the ball downfield. They need to take some chances this year. And they're obviously going to be a run-first offense, but when you do pass, they got to take some chances. They got to, take some risks. This is a team that's been such a box offense with no real chances, no real deep threats, no real deep throws, no real, vertical plays. Kyle Williams can stretch the field and open things up deep. And that's one of his biggest strengths is his tracking of the football downfield and his downfield speed when he gets into space and has the opportunity to make plays on deep balls. You just look at some of the numbers here. He had 14 deep catches last year, which was tied for 10th in all of college football. He also had 21 missed tackles forced, which was tied for 18th. And he was 15th in college football in yards after the catch. So you look at some of the strengths, his yak ability, big play potential, speed, tracking the football, an X wide receiver, which pairs perfectly alongside Garrett Wilson. And I would also call him a little versatile as well because he had 232 screen yards last year, which was 11th. But he was also top 25 with those 454 deep yards. So you're talking about a guy that can be a threat underneath, screen, utilize his speed, a guy that can stretch the field, open things up, take the top off of defense. I like Kyle Williams a lot. I've watched a lot of tape. I've really kind of dove into him more recently here, especially after the top 30 visit. We had him in our mock draft a couple weeks ago. Then the Jets had a visit with him. I think this could be a home run, really good value pick if you can get him here round 4, first pick of day 3, and get Garrett Wilson in this team some desperately needed wide receiver help. Does need to work better against physical corners. Blocking is not necessarily a big strength of his. I don't think that should be much of a surprise. He's only 5'11", 190, not necessarily built to be a blocking wide receiver. And like I said, you would like to see the drops drop off a little bit, no pun intended there, than where they were last year with that 6.7% drop rate, slightly below average college football. But overall, like the projection here for Kyle Williams. So you get a receiver there in round number 4. Second pick here, day 3, round number 5. We're going to go a little Jets, Aaron Glenn connection. You might know where I'm going with this one, just saying that. R.J. Mickens, safety out of Clemson, round 5, pick 145, 6 foot, 199-pound senior. I would honestly argue and make the prediction that this pick might end up happening. I would also be on board with this pick happening. I like some safeties over Mickens, but the way the board falls here, the Jets have so many needs. I could see the Jets waiting and taking a guy like R.J. Mickens, who has a direct connection with Aaron Glenn, direct connection with the Jets. His dad, he's the son of Ray Mickens, who's teammates with Aaron Glenn. They were both on the Jets. So you bring R.J. Mickens, get both Mickens on the Jets. Ray Mickens played with Glenn. R.J. Mickens now could potentially play under Aaron Glenn. So you just look at the Jets connections, the history there. It feels like this could easily be a pick the Jets make, and not very hard to understand why they would make the pick given the background of Mickens and Glenn and the Jets that they make here on day number 3. And that's what we'll do here. 2024 stats, 76 total tackles, 7 passes defended, 2 interceptions. He spent all 5 of his collegiate seasons at Clemson going back to 2020. In his career, 196 total tackles, 12 passes defended, and 7 interceptions. And not even just R.J. Mickens himself, right? We talk about the connections, but he's a good player. He's a good safety. And he'd be a good addition for this team. There's a couple different safeties in this draft, and in every draft it's the same way, but a couple different directions the Jets could go. They could go with that more run-stopping, really good safety when it comes to stopping the run, dropping down, good open field tackling, all that stuff. Or they could go with that safety that is more of your ball hawk / coverage safety. I wouldn't necessarily classify RJ Mickens as a ball hawk, but he is a very good coverage safety that doesn't let up a whole lot of, is going to help there in the back end. He's going to cover his zone well. Like, that's the type of player you're getting with Mickens. Very good in coverage. And the Jets' secondary safeties could use some coverage help. They also could use a little bit of mix of ball hawking. They could use some more interceptions. They could use some more turnovers. RJ Mickens, I think, provides a lot of what the Jets need in the back end, which is a guy that can be steady in coverage. And that's exactly what he did last year. An 89.8 coverage grade, 87.5 overall grade. His 89.8 coverage grade was tied for the second best among Power 4 safeties, which I think is important. Played in ACC school at Clemson against really good competition, did very well. Some of the other strengths, impressive instincts, very good pre-snap recognition, high football IQ. I think you can understand kind of why. Of course, the background with his father playing certainly helps him in his college and NFL journey. And he had very good wrap-up technique. Right, talk about the coverage, but does some good things as well as a tackler. Some of the weaknesses, doesn't have the greatest long speed and can be limited at times on vertical plays. If he gets caught into bad positioning, can oftentimes get caught up in chasing a guy down and not necessarily catching up. So vertical plays can struggle, and he doesn't have the best range. But I think just you get a coverage safety here. You get a guy that, can come in, compete, day 3 pick, background obviously with the family. Feels like a pick that very well could happen, and a pick I could certainly be on board with here as we take him in this mock draft. RJ Mickens, safety out of Clemson. Now, a couple picks later, or more than a couple picks later, but staying in round 5, we're going to get some more defensive tackle help here. I'm going to go Ty Robinson, defensive tackle out of Nebraska. And look, we don't really know exactly what Aaron Glenn and Darren Mucci totally want in a player. We'll really find that out. But based off of what you've heard them say, especially Aaron Glenn himself, the Jets want a guys who are going to be physical, going to have that just physical mentality, bully mentality, high motor mentality, just like that type of guy that's going to wear you down, go after you, try and knock you in the mouth. That feels like what Aaron Glenn and the Jets want. And Ty Robinson, in my opinion, fits a lot of that. And I don't think it can hurt for the Jets here to take another defensive tackle and then continue to improve the interior of this defensive line on day number 3. Ty Robinson, 6'5", 288 pounds senior. Freak athlete. He had an athleticism score of 80, which was 5th among defensive tackle prospects. Now, he's been in college football forever. 6 years at Nebraska, going back to 2019. You look at his 2024 numbers. He had 37 total tackles, 7 sacks, which was a career high, and 13 tackles for loss, which was also a career high. He also added on 4 passes batted down, 11 quarterback hits, and 25 quarterback hurries. In 60 career games played at Nebraska, he logged 134 tackles, 12 sacks, 27 tackles for loss, 12 passes defended. Ty Robinson had a monster season in 2024. And he really showed much more of a complete game than he did in previous years. Right? I mentioned the 7 sacks, which was a career high. He showed a very, very impressive pass rushing ability that you didn't quite see in his first couple years at Nebraska, specifically, 2022, 2023, more of the recent years, you didn't even see it. Last year, you saw it. Career highs in many categories, career highs in many Pro Football Focus categories as well. He had a 79.5 pass rush grade last year and a 75.1 overall grade. It was his best of his career, his 79.5 pass rush grade. And the athleticism, you saw some of the moves and the pass rushing ability that he added to his repertoire last year. A really intriguing prospect, just in my opinion. to take a flyer on day 3 for a guy coming off of a career year, a guy that showed really excellent pass rushing skills last year. You hope he can carry that into and continue to refine his game, continue to get better. I always like taking chances on guys with athletic upside, high upside, coming off of really good seasons. And that's what you get here in Ty Robinson. The strengths, not only that you talk about the athleticism, but he's got a high motor, bully mentality, very high upside. Does have shorter arms and can rush upright at times. Those are some of the weaknesses. But for a 5th round, day 3 pick, you kind of get your run stuffer in Tyleik Williams, which is what this Jets team needs. And then day 3, you get your high upside athletic pass rusher that can come in as a depth piece and provide some of that pass rushing prowess in the interior of that defensive line behind Quinnen, Tyleik Williams, and the rest of that group. So that's what we do here with Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. So 2 more picks. Round 6, pick 186. We're going to go Nick Nash. Nick Nash is another one of, you want to call him a draft crush, whatever. He falls on my draft crush list. Nick Nash is very high on my board. I really like Nick Nash. I shouldn't say high on my board in terms of like 1st round talent. No, he's day 3 guy. But in terms of a day 3 guy that I think could work out well and has a high upside and is worth taking a 6th round flyer on, it's Nick Nash. 6'2.5", 203 pounds senior. You get some more wide receiver help here out of San Jose State. Kind of a crazy career for Nick Nash that I want to break down. So he originally went to San Jose State in 2019. So he's been in college forever as well as a quarterback. He played quarterback for 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021, and then switched to wide receiver where he's played the last 3 years there, of course, tallying up to the full 6 years of college. His numbers last year were just ridiculous. 104 receptions, 1,382 yards, 13.3 yards per reception, and 16 touchdowns. All of those were career highs by a mile. And not only were they career highs, they also all led the Mountain West Conference. And he ranked near the top of college football in many of those categories. His 104 receptions were 1st in college football among wide receivers. His 1,382 yards were 1st in college football among wide receivers. And his 16 touchdowns were 1st in the nation with everybody combined. Tight ends and wide receivers, those 16 receiving touchdowns were 1st in the nation among them all. And a lot of people look at Nick Nash and see, oh, he played at a smaller school, San Jose State, Mountain West, right? And a lot of people even look at Harold Fannin Jr. as well and say the same thing, where they just had crazy numbers last year, but people question the competition. I've always said this. 1,300 yards and 104 receptions and 16 touchdowns, that's hard to do no matter where you are. And that's incredibly impressive. And I think you watch Nick Nash, and there's a lot of, the numbers pop out, but when you watch him play, a lot of his technique and his just technical stuff is, I think, really impressive, and a lot more impressive than I think some people may realize. This is a guy that you just look at some of the strengths here. Very good footwork. The production's obviously there. Very good route running. And his release package is impressive as well. A lot of the technical stuff, Nick Nash, route running, footwork, he does really, really well. And I think that's why you get a guy in day 3. Oftentimes you take flyers on guys in day 3 where technique and stuff needs a lot of refinement. That's not necessarily the case with Nick Nash. The production was there, and the technique in a lot of areas was also there. 86.9 receiving grade. And I got to throw some of these other numbers out here. Tied for 1st in missed tackles forced. 3rd in deep catches. 1st in slot catches. Tied for 4th in contested catches. He was 1st in slot yards. You're looking at a bigger slot in Nick Nash. So you the way I kind of built this out was you get your X in Kyle Williams, and you get your bigger slot here in Nick Nash, 2 receivers to add to that room that desperately needs help. And he was also 19th in deep yards, which you talk about it. You want this team to stretch the field, take some chances, and be able to to be more productive vertically. Nick Nash brings that. Some of the weaknesses, not the best change of direction and speed-wise when you're looking at like long speed, not the most athletic of the bunch, but technique, production, all there. You're looking at a bigger slot. For a 6th-round pick, I think Nick Nash is certainly worth it. So final pick here of this final New York Jets 7-round mock draft. I'm going to go Miles Frazier, guard out of LSU. 6'6", 317-pound senior. 5 seasons in college football, spent the first 2 at Florida Atlantic before transferring to LSU for these past 3 seasons. Ended last year with a 70.4 Pro Football Focus grade. Very good in pass protection. Struggled at times from a run blocking perspective, but from a pass blocking perspective, did a lot of good things. 88 pass blocking grade, also had an 81.7 true pass set pass blocking grade. What I like about Miles Frazier and why I would take a guy like this last pick, round 6, 207, somewhere in this range, is as much as we look at the Jets offensive line right now and love what we see, especially right if they do take on Armand Membu, John Simpson and Elijah Vera Tucker are both free agents. And while, right, I'm not saying both of them are going to be gone, there's a chance at least one of them's gone. And Miles Frazier is a guy that can play multiple positions, number one. He's played every position on the offensive line except center, including last year. He's primarily a right guard, but he's versatile. And that's what I like about him a lot. I always think it's good to have a few versatile offensive linemen as depth pieces where they can fill in multiple different areas. That's what Miles Frazier brings to the table. And also, in a world where one of AVT or John Simpson is not back in 2026, Miles Frazier can essentially sit this year, be a depth piece, and then possibly slot in next year to fill one of those holes if one of those guys is not here. So I think this is a pick that not only can provide more depth for this season, where he plays, he's seen snaps at 4 of the 5 offensive line positions except center, but also a guy where next year could find himself in a starting role, and you could set yourself up for already having your next starter in place. And in the event you lose a Simpson or an AVT in free agency, rather than having to draft or find somebody else next year, you could bring in Frazier, start that development process this year, and be an option there for the future. So that's my thought process with Miles Frazier. And of course, you know me, I like the offensive linemen who are a little versatile and can play multiple spots. Some of his strengths: wide frame, good hands, versatility. Weakness, not the quickest off the line, and just overall the get off the snap, not the quickest. Miles Frazier, depth piece that maybe can turn into a starter in the future if you have kind of a mix up there at guard after the season with both Simpson and AVT hitting the open market. So my final Jets mock draft, a mix of mainly what I would do. Like if the Jets did this, I would be totally happy with it. Also kind of mixed in some predictions. Like I think RJ Mickens I could easily see happening. I could definitely see Ozzie Trapilo happening if this direction is going. Again, my prediction is Armand Membu. What I would do, Tyler Warren. So that's what we do. Round 1, pick 7, just to go around one more time, Tyler Warren. Round 2, pick 42, Tyleik Williams. Round 3, pick 73, Ozzie Trapilo. Round 4, pick 110, Kyle Williams. Round 5, pick 145, RJ Mickens. Round 5, pick 162, Ty Robinson. Round 6, pick 186, Nick Nash. And round 6, pick 207, rounding out the 2025 draft for the Jets, Miles Frazier. So that's the draft. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You like it? Don't like it? Mixed feelings? Let me know. Love all the comments. Appreciate all the support. Want to drop your own mock draft down below? Drop it down below, and I'll definitely take a look. 3 days away. Cannot wait. We'll have a lot more content coming your way, so stay tuned as draft week is officially here, and cannot wait. Exciting time. So talk to you soon. Until next time, JETS. Jets, Jets, Jets.